Hi, my name is Kat Maxwell, and today I'm going to be talking about the accommodations for deaf and hard of hearing students. A little presentation overview. I want to talk about accommodations and modifications for deaf and hard of hearing students, of course, what they're supposed to be doing in the classroom. I also want to talk about teacher involvement and how the teachers should be supporting these accommodations. I'm going to talk about what type of accommodations are used for communication, physical environment, and instructional environment. And then I also want to talk about the modifications for curriculums and evaluations. And then lastly, other needs and considerations for deaf and hard of hearing students. First, we're going to talk about classroom accommodations and modifications, essentially what they are. Any adaptation or adjustment which may assist the student in their educational achievement is what an accommodation or modification is. Accommodations or modifications should always be chosen purposefully based on the child's needs, and those can be chosen through careful observation, thoughtful educational planning, and systematic evaluation to guide those decisions. Two key things when picking these. They should always be properly implemented in the classroom so that they'll minimize social, educational, and emotional hardships for deaf or hard of hearing students. Teachers must be fully aware of the proper techniques available to help provide the best learning environment and promote the child's success in the classroom. That also should be a part of being properly implemented. It cannot be properly implemented if the teachers aren't aware of all the techniques that they should be using and doing. So what teachers should be doing, first, they have to understand what hearing loss or deafness is and how it affects their students. They have to be able to troubleshoot technology associated with hearing loss, such as FM systems, which are sounds transmitters directly from a microphone worn by the teacher and transmitted to the student, usually through like an earpiece. And then an audio induction loop system, which uses actually the light beams in the room to carry sound to their personal receiver, which is actually really interesting how it uses the light beams to do such. They must have adequate knowledge of the educational implications associated with hearing loss, such as the acoustics of the room, the lighting, language, and the social concerns. So communication accommodations, there are a lot of these, and it's not necessarily just communication, it's a lot of what helps the student learn. So specialized seating could be helpful, where maybe you want the child to be closer so that they could see you better and read your lips better, to reduce any auditory distractions like background noise or other kids talking in the classroom, enhance speech reading conditions like avoiding your hands in front of your face, mustaches should be well trimmed, and no chewing gum while you're talking. That could be really difficult to read your lips. Clearly enunciate your speech, repeat or rephrase info when necessary. That should definitely be, so the teacher should ask if the student is understanding what they're saying. A lot of children are very shy. They don't want to raise their hand every 2 minutes to say like, oh, will you repeat that? Could you rephrase that? So you should definitely be asking if they're understanding it and repeat it if you need to. It should definitely be taken into the teacher's hands as well. Sometimes you're possibly able to have an educational interpreter, such as ASL, signed English, or cued speech. Obtain the student's attention prior to speaking, so they're looking at you as you're speaking. Reduce visual distractions, so they're not looking at anything besides you. Present information simply. So you want it to be structured in sequential manner, just so that when they're taking notes, everything is very spelled out for them and that their notes come more easily. And also allow extra time to process that. So even if they need extra time to take the notes, many deaf or hard of hearing students struggle to develop or improve literacy skills. So it might take them a little bit longer to take those notes. Frequently check for understanding. Of course, you always want to make sure they're understanding the information, not just writing it down and moving along. Those are the continued or communicative accommodations. So for physical environment accommodations, you wouldn't really think you would need a physical environment accommodation, but there actually are a lot of things. Of course, noise reduction. You don't want a whole lot of background noise, and that can include like carpet and other sound absorption materials. Like if, for instance, if a teacher wears heels and there's clicking of the heels, that could definitely be a distraction. Room design modification. As you can see, I put the optimal classroom arrangement in. So where the screen is, where the teacher's desk is, and how the desks are arranged. No matter where the child is sitting, you want them to be able to see you, the teacher, and the screen. So you never want to put them in the back of a classroom, or if the desks are arranged otherwise, to not be facing the front of the room. Sometimes you also need specialized lighting because the fluorescent lights emit a sound that interferes with hearing aids and cochlear implants. So they could actually not be hearing you at all, even if they do have a hearing aid. And then lastly, flashing fire alarms. In 2010, the Americans with Disabilities Act actually they modified the fire alarm system. Okay, well, when alarm systems are installed, upgraded, or replaced, such systems must have audible and visual notification devices. So when a fire alarm starts flashing, that is for deaf people who wouldn't be able to hear it going off. Instructional accommodations include using visual supplements, using like overheads, chalkboard, charts, vocab lists, and maybe lecture outlines. A buddy system is so helpful for notes, extra explanations, and directions. Oftentimes this could really help them socially as well, so they get a better understanding of the information while they're talking to a friend about this. Downtime and breaks from listening could be helpful, step-by-step instructions, and maybe even having a personal note taker, because once again, sometimes they do struggle to develop and improve their literacy skills. Also, captioning and scripts for maybe TV, videos, movies, or film strips. Of course, you want them to get the exact same thing out of any videos that you're using as any other student would. Using extra time to complete assignments, or maybe even having a personal tutor. Having a personal tutor would also be very, very helpful if they knew sign language. For curricular and evaluation modifications, curricular, you would probably want to modify any reading or writing assignments, maybe even provide extra time. A tutor could also help with that a lot. And evaluation, probably reduce the quantity of tests and quizzes, or maybe even the length of them to help, providing assistance during tests, maybe like a person to read it for them, and of course allowing extra time. Any other needs and considerations, supplementary instruction, which is any academic support model using peer-assisted study sessions. This could be very helpful considering they are among their peers. This could include things like speech, language, pragmatic skills, auditory, speech reading skills. Another very, very helpful consideration is knowing sign language. It's probably much, much easier to know sign language and talk to them through there rather than having them read your lips. Any counseling they need for maybe even any of the hardships that they have could be very, very helpful. And having a deaf and hard of hearing role model is really important because there aren't many. Being able to go through every single day and having to live a little bit harder than everyone else does could be really difficult, but having a role model show you that it is possible and it's definitely worth it is really important. So that concludes everything for my accommodations. for deaf and hard of hearing students. Thanks.